Hi, this is Brandon. Welcome to part 1 of sculpting a character head in ZBrush. The concept I'm working from was done by Justin Booth. You can find his work at Justin Booth Art on Instagram. Go check him out. All right, we'll get to the bare bones of it. Now, ZBrush opens up with Lightbox preloaded. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this default project. Now, this just simplifies a few of these steps normally needed to get ZBrush started. We're going to need a reference image to work from. So I'm going to load this into Spotlight. I'm going to go to Texture, Import, going to navigate to where my image is at, and I have cropped this in advance. I'm going to go back to Texture. I've loaded it into Spotlight, but I have to, activate it. Is a good way to put it. So I'm going to click on that image, and then I'm going to click on this icon here that says Add to Spotlight. It looks like an up and down arrow above a speedometer. So now I have my image in Spotlight, which is great. This wheel here has a lot of different options. Some of my favorite are the scale option here and opacity as well. This starts off a little bit transparent. Turn that all the way up for now. Let's kind of put this out of the way a little bit. Now to hide this wheel, I can hit Z. That'll toggle that, but I still can't work yet. What I need to do is go to the brush panel, which is either over here, or I like to use this flyout menu. If I double click on this edge, it brings up these options. And I'm going to go to samples. I need to turn spotlight projection off. What spotlight projection was originally intended for was applying textures to your sculpting process. Well, I'm just using this as a reference, so we'll turn that off. And now you see I can actually do some work here. If I want to move this around at all, just hit Z, kind of push this around a little bit, toggle Z again to turn that off. All right, let's make something. We're going to start by blocking out the head. Now, if you notice here, I do have symmetry on. To toggle this is just X. I'm going to open my subtool panel over here so I can see my subtools. All right, I'm going to open my brush panel and I'm going to look for the knife curve. If I hit K, I can narrow this down and search this out. Now this tells me I need to use Control and Shift in order to activate this. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to just shave a little bit off the side here. That's a bit much. Let's go about here. That's a little better. Now, if I hit W or select any of these buttons up here, I can bring up this gizmo. And I'm going to kind of squish this down just a little bit. I'm making the mass of the upper part of the skull. If I hit Q or hit draw over here, I can get rid of that gizmo. In the subtool panel on the right-hand side, I'm going to hit append. I'm going to add a new sphere here, and it does not come pre-selected, so I need to select it in my subtool panel, or I can click Alt-Tap to select another piece. All right, and as I rotate, if I hold down Shift, it will snap in an orthographic view. So I'm going to grab it, pull it down, and we'll shrink it down. Kind of get this in place a little bit. Now, what I want to do is I want to put this seam right here, right about where the eyes are sitting. Typically, the eyes sit right in the middle of the head, but this character, his are a little further up. I'm going to bring this up a little more than I normally would. I'm also going to squish this in, just kind of get this in place. I can always modify this later. Let's go a little more. Something to note, anytime you append a new subtool, symmetry does not automatically turn on. You have to turn symmetry on with each new subtool. So again, just hit X. And I'm going to go and grab my move brush. I'm going to hit M. I'm holding on space to open up this flyout menu here. I'm going to get the brush pretty large, and I'm just going to start to shape the face here. You can get a whole lot done in the beginning with blocking out, especially with just the move brush. It's quite effective, especially if you're just starting out with primitives. In ZBrush, I mostly like to use spheres. In the beginning phases, I am mostly interested in just getting the parts in place, hence the term blockout, right? So I'm going to go to the subtool panel and hit append. I'm going to grab another sphere. And again, I have to select it. Remember that symmetry turns off with every subtool. Now let's make an eye. Now with the eye, I want to make sure and keep it a sphere no matter what, right? Because as my character turns and looks, I need to make sure that the eyeball stays round. In this case, let's turn off symmetry, because if I leave it on, you see what happens? We don't want that. So turn off symmetry, slide it over, maybe scale it down just a little bit. Also, the eyes are always much larger than you think they are, right? We're looking at the curvature of the eye, and that's all we can see. So this eyeball is going to be quite large inside the skull. Let's go out here and looking at this, the way his face shape is going. Every time I add a new piece, it gives me something else to compare to. All right, so I'm going to Alt-Tap back on the eyeball. And now I want to duplicate this eye so that I have one on each side to work with. So I'm going to go to Z plugin up at the top, and I'm going to go to Subtool Master, and then I'm going to go to Mirror. And this is going to ask me if I want to mirror this over as one subtool or separate it. I want them together so I can use symmetry if I needed to edit something. And I want it to go on the X axis. As long as this head is facing forward, that will be to the right. Something to keep in mind with the mirror options, ZBrush will always mirror from left to right. So I want to put the eyeball on the screen left side and mirror it over to the right. Hit OK. And now I've got two eyeballs. Now, if I want to edit this at all, I need to keep something in mind. If I go to scale this up, or move this, I need to have local symmetry on, but the little white text dynamic needs to be off. I also need to hit X and make sure my actual symmetry is also turned on. So now I can scale these up accordingly without there being any issues, or move them in and out without any problems, right? All right, in fact, I'm gonna go a little smaller for now. And all right, now let's get a nose in here so we can compare against that as well. So we're gonna go over to the subtool panel, and you guessed it, hit Append, select it, hit W to get my gizmo. I'm going to scale this down to about the diameter that I want, and then I'm going to scale it up. I've got kind of this almost egg shape, I guess, to some place. Rotate it over, way too large. With this nice little clown nose here. And really, I'm more concerned about just getting new geometry in place, right? Again, hit X for my symmetry. I'm just going to kind of scooch it in. I like to use little movements, little taps. And I will constantly vary the brush size. I think that can change quite a bit of how it affects the model. I'm really just after basic shapes here, right? Most noses are upturned a little bit like this, but in this particular model, it's very rounded across the top and kind of really sticks down towards the bottom. It's got quite a large nose as well, actually. Something starts to pull funny, I can kind of smooth it out a little bit. We change the brush size. He's got a very large, bulbous nose here. I'm just going to kind of put the impression of some nostrils in here. I'm not going to get full detailed yet. Just want my geometry in place for the most part. All right, now looking at this, I can tell, adding these couple parts, I Alt-tap on the cranium part of the head. I need to kind of square this out on the front. Look at his forehead up here, right? We want to kind of pull that up a little bit. And in the back of the head, where the skull sits, we have a little more mass back there. Same with the bottom of the back. There we go. Let's smooth this down a little bit. And this line is super crisp in here. We need to just take that edge off, right? All right, and I'm going to smooth this down just a little bit. I'm going to hold Shift and bring this around. And then if I hold Shift, then tap with my pen and then let go, do you see how it changes the smooth a little bit? It changes the algorithm of how this type of smooth works. All right, let's add a neck in here. Append, grab a new one. Make sure to hit symmetry so I don't forget. Put this down here, and again, scale it to diameter. Now, as long as I'm facing sideways, I can grab these little arrows, right? And as long as I'm facing orthographic, front, side, whatever, it will move in that direction. Otherwise, if I do this and move it, so it moves off center, and then, yeah, with my symmetry in there, it really doesn't like that, right? So when I turn, I always just have this habit of just like rotating, hold Shift, right? Scale this down, and then same thing, I'm gonna scale this up, make it a little taller. That's a super thick neck. I rotate this forward, kind of point this arrow in here to this crevice. He's got a pretty skinny little neck in here. Yeah, see, look, something's off already. And you see how the head looks like it's slightly off kilter. Well, really what it is, it's perspective. I like working with perspective off because it kind of creates these optical illusions in a way, right? All right, I'm gonna kind of pull this out. Some kind of neck meat in here. This transition look a little better. It's got a pretty thin neck here. It's fairly straight, but it does have some curves at the top and the bottom. And just kind of pull this out. Again, we're just doing a bust here. We're just doing a head and neck, maybe some shoulders. Maybe a little bit chest, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. Let's go a little further. I want to get at least to where the shoulders kind of fall off. One of my favorite things about ZBrush is it works like digital clay, right? So I like to think about how if I was making this in real life with real clay, I would grab a little more clay to add to the neck, or grab a little more clay to add to the nose, right? So sometimes I'll even make the chest and the shoulders out of different subtools as well, so I can adjust that. So I'm kind of measuring against from this view, his neck and shoulder here versus that. We're going to need to bring that up. Just going to kind of scooch that in a little bit. Again, we're just blocking, so I'm looking at basic shapes. I'm looking at the silhouette. I can already tell, same thing, that this head, kind of the muzzle in here, needs to be adjusted. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you need to adjust something first, you need to add something first, and compare it to something else. Again, this is going to look funky in the beginning until we get it worked in. And I like to block everything in and get everything started, kind of build everything all up at once, at least for the block in, then we can start working on some details. Get this jaw shape back in here. Pull this out just a little. There we go. Smooth this out a little. All right. How about we throw in some ears? Make sure you have that new subtool. Turn off symmetry. Move to the side. And again, I want to go to the left because I'm going to mirror from screen left to screen right. Now, something to consider is the top of the ear typically lines up with the middle of the eye, and the bottom of the ear typically lines up about with the bottom of the nose. Not always, but typically. And it's always worth checking your concept against that. I'm going to scale it front and back in the Z direction. I've got this nice, lovely disc here. Now, if I hit the unlock up here, I can move the gizmo over to about where it meets with the head, lock it again, rotate it back. And I want on kind of like a, I don't know, maybe a 30-ish degree angle-ish. All right, now I want to scoot it forward, but if I want to do that with these arrows, I need to fix the gizmo. So I'm going to unlock it hit this arrow, this kind of spinny arrow thing, and that will reorient the gizmo and then lock it again. And I can bring that forward and put that better in place. And with my move brush, begin to shape the ear. Just kind of tap things in place here, change the brush size here, pull this out because he's got these big gauges, these big gauged ears, right? All right, now this is far from perfect, and it's going to be, I want to just get things blocked in, kind of roughed in, and I'm going to kind of push the ear in here a little bit, flatten this out a little bit. I also want to add a little mass on the back of the ear. All right, good start. All right, now while I'm blocking things in, let's go, I'm going to hit Z and bring out my concept here, scale it up. Let's also turn the opacity down. And I'm going to kind of place this about where I think proportionally things should be sitting, and it's not going to line up perfectly. And just see how close or how far away I am from my concept. And I hit Z again, and now I can work to modify this. All right, so I can tell right now my chin needs to be adjusted. Alt and tap on that subtool. If I can help it, I'm going to try not to rotate the model while I'm here because I've just got it lined up. So it's not going to be perfect. So I probably need to pull the chin forward a little bit as well. Just a little tricky to do this angle. It's going to look super funky when I go to modify it later. All right, Alt tap on this piece down here. Now what I can also do if this gets a little bit lost, it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing. So I can hit this line fill, and this will show me the geometry of the model, but it'll also show me a color. The color is based on the poly group, which I will get into more in a minute. Polygroups are very powerful in ZBrush. They are ways to modify, hide, and append things with your model. Yeah, see some of the stuff I was way off with. Our geo's getting really thin here, so we're going to modify that here in a minute as well. We'll fix that just a bit. Smooth this out. Now, if I hold Shift to smooth and then let go, see how that algorithm kind of changes that? It more smooths the geo out versus melts the model down, right? So again, that's a Shift, tap, and then just let off of Shift. Now, your concept is probably going to be different from side to side just a little bit because it was done in 2D. And as my friend Justin, who drew this piece, loves to say, he does things in 2D land where he can just make stuff up, and then us as 3D artists gets to come in here and make it real. And he's totally right. Half of our job here is to make this look like something that you can work with. All right, hit the unlock and rotate my gizmo again because it was pointing backwards. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. I was pretty close on that nose, not too far off. Okay, good enough for now. Again, on this face, I'm going to bring this down. This kind of side cheek bit in here is a little too tall for me. I want this to be more of kind of a straight line across the face. Just kind of smooth that down. Alt tap on the ear. Bring up the gizmo. Let's bring this ear way down. Actually, I am going to go out on a limb and guess that this needs to just be rotated out a little without modifying the whole shape. There we go. Okay. Now, if you're getting started and you're having a hard time with proportions, there's nothing wrong with overlaying your image on top of your model. All right, Alt tap on the cranium itself. Now the back of the head I'm going to need to fix, and it's not, I can't do it from this angle, so we'll modify that here in just a second. It's got kind of a bit that comes out here. It's almost more flat in here. And sometimes I'm looking at this ridge on the side, but I can still modify it from over here, right? Even smooth it a little bit. So I'm working over here, but I'm looking over here to see how that gets affected. See that nose? Now that the color's off, I can see that a little bit better as well. Just going to kind of squish this in, make it a little thicker at the base. See those nostrils. Oh, that's going to be funky from the front view. I can tell you right now. And just for proportional sake, I'm going to just kind of rough in a little mouth in here. And this is going to be a throwaway. I'm not going to keep this. So let's go to brush panel, and I'm going to grab the Dam standard, which is short for Damien standard. Hit the D key to narrow it down. Dam standard is really good for etching things in, right? I'm just roughing this in just for proportion so I can kind of get my landmarks in here, right? I just want to see where my basic pieces are at. And again, I'm going to Alt tap on the head. See, I'm constantly seeing things I need to adjust, right? And I'm trying not to get too OCD about it. Grab the move brush. Back of the head could be pushed in a little bit. Fit that shape a little bit. There we go. Okay, so accessories like the nose ring here and the earring in here, the gauge, I'm going to do those a little bit later. But now let's see how bad we're looking. Let's hit Z. We will move this over to the side. Let's bring back my opacity. Yeah, look at look at that model now. Isn't that great? All right, let's make this a little smaller. Get him out of the way. Hit Z. And again, if you're working with your reference image here using Spotlight projection needs to be off. It needs to stay off. So if that pops back on, turn it off. Yeah, so this looks super funky, doesn't it? I'm a big proponent of looking at the model from all directions. Right, see how this got kind of warbly in here? There's also some things with the head that are true for almost all humans. Your concept art is king, so always refer back to that. But one thing is the back of the skull is always thicker than the front of the skull. And this nose is not working. I'll tap to grab that subtool, pull this out. Yeah, the whole point of overlaying that is just to get rough landmarks in so I can come in and work with that. Always touch up that needs done too. Alt tap on the mouth here. We'll kind of touch this up. Now we want this more pointed, but it's got to read from all directions. So we'll list back out. Now the shape of the cheek is going to define a lot of things here. That's part of what's making the nose look funny. That's part of what's making the lips look funny. Now I'm going to merge all these parts together here in just a moment once I've got all my pieces in, but I want to make sure that things aren't clipping into themselves too badly. Like I had that kind of jaw poking out on the side. It's super warbly here too. Smooth it out a bit. Earlobe tends to sit back a little bit more than the rest of the ear, so let's push him back a little. Smooth this back out, smooth this back out. Now I can smooth this out if I am in the lower stages of geometry, right? And the smooth will actually help me shrink it down. Once I get more topology in here, if I put in too much geometry, then it's harder to work with. So in the beginning, I want to keep this pretty low poly, keep my try count low. So right now I've got about 8,000 active points out of the whole thing, only 58,000. I see only because ZBrush can hold millions and not chug, just fantastic. Okay, this eye shape is bothering me, but we'll fix that here in a moment. A little bigger. I'm going to smooth this out again. All right, now these shoulders need some love. Lots of love. Perspective is such an interesting thing. Something can look just fine from one direction. Turn it, the shape can completely deform. Now see how this is kind of almost pointed here? I want the actual shoulder. Here, I like to work on the left side. And if I need to mirror it, it mirrors from screen left, screen right. But the shoulder should have a little more roundness to it. All right, I'm going to use my knife curve. And again, I need to hold down Control, Shift, and Control. And I'm going to go from the bottom up in this case because the gradient is what's going to be cut. And if I let go, I can freeform change where this angle is at. Or if I hold down Shift, it will snap in 5-degree increments. Clip that down. All right, now before I go too much further, I'm going to merge some of these parts together. Now, as I merge these parts down, I want to keep the eyes separate. I'm going to replace them later in Maya, so they need to be separate. So I'm just going to go over to my subtool panel and push them up to the top. And now I'm going to select the next piece down, and anything I want to basically smash down or merge down needs to be below these pieces. So I don't want to do the eyes. I want to select something below the eyes. And then I'm going to go down below in my subtool panel and click merge. And I'm going to hit merge down. Little warning, I like to leave this up. I can skip it, but I'm gonna hit OK because I don't want to accidentally hit that. It's not undoable. And then I'm going to continue and merge the rest of these parts. Merge down, OK, merge down, OK, merge down, OK. And I do these one at a time because I like to see what's happening, and I want to make sure I don't accidentally merge the eyes in. So with all these parts merged down, you notice there's different colors in here. I want to maintain these separate colors. As I merge this together, I'm going to go to the geometry panel, and I'm going to do 3 things here. It's kind of a three-point step. For one, I need to get the geometry to be closer together. Right now we have some very spread out geometry, some very tight geometry. I want to average these out a little bit. But actually before I do, I'm going to save because sometimes software crashes. And there's 2 ways to save my project. I can do File, Save As, and this will save my project with all my settings. Or I can go to Save As under the tool panel and save a Z tool. A Z tool will save all of my parts in my subtool list, but it's a much lighter saving method, right? So I'm going to do both. Go Save As, and I'm going to rename this. All right, we'll go ahead and save that. And then again, I'm also going to save my project just to show you how each way is done. All right, so now with my save set, with all of our separate subtools merged together into one subtool, if I click on this Line Poly F button, this is Draw Polyframe, you'll see these different colors. These represent the different poly groups. And polygroups in ZBrush are fairly powerful. If I were to hold Control and Shift and tap on one separate polygroup, everything else will disappear. Now, if I tap on that same one again, that one disappears and everything else reappears. But I can now systematically move a piece one at a time if I need to. I can also go off the model and tap, and it brings everything back. Why would this matter? Well, I can come in here and modify things based on the polygroup itself by hiding things and getting them out of the way so that I can move some things around. Bring that back. So that clipping now is no longer a problem. Polygroups get pretty complex, but that's kind of the basics. Now, what I want to do, I want to push the eyes in a little bit. And if you'll notice, now that it's merged, my move brush is affecting both polygroups, both pieces of geometry. These are not physically welded together, but it does affect them both together. Now, if there's some reason that I want to also modify just one one piece, I can go to this flyout menu, which is the brush panel essentially, click on auto masking, scroll down a little bit, and turn on topological masking. Now, whatever I move from where I first brought my pen down, it will only move that subtool. Now, whichever poly group I decide to move, wherever I start moving, it will continue to move that and that one alone, right? So if I go down here, grab this one or this one, I can move them independently and separately, which is also quite nice. You can toggle this on and off. I can move them together. I can move them separate. I'm going to make a few adjustments to this face because overall there are some things that need tweaked. Pull the head out a little bit. Now, if you're noticing as you move things, start to get kind of bumpy, most likely your brush is too small. And if this happens, you can always hold down Shift to smooth this out or let go and change that algorithm for a different smooth. Now, the eyes here have a distinct shape. These particular eyes come down quite a bit. Most eye shapes from the side create a general triangle. Obviously, it's going to change per concept and based on what kind of character you're working with. In general, we want to get somewhat of a triangle shape over here. Use the topological mask here to move this. Or here. You know, we're going to use polygroups for a second. We're going to get rid of the nose. Push this in a little bit. Typically, most eyes, the eye duct is lower than the outside of the eye. In here, what's kind of implied is the eye duct. That corner of the eye is lower than that outside, right? Still want to follow my concept as much as I can. And the inside of the eye is where this clips in is actually pretty deep. There's kind of a cavity in there. Because of that, I think I might actually change the eye size. Yeah, let's do that. Alt tap on the eyes themselves, hit W to bring up the gizmo, and make these just a little bit smaller. Now, if I'm curious about the size themselves, I can also hit this transparency button. Yeah, the eyes are quite large inside the head, but I think I've made them just a little bit big. And remember, when I go to scale this, I need to have X turned on for my symmetry, and I need local symmetry with dynamic, this little white dynamic text turned off. Otherwise, they will not scale correctly. Turn transparency back off. Something else to note with the eyes is that they're going to sit back behind the bridge of the nose. Kind of modify this. Smooth this out here. I need to create a plane change underneath the eyes. I'll sharpen that here a bit more after our next step. Smooth this out a little bit. I'm just going to make some modifications to the overall face shape. Does have this cheekbone that kind of pops out a little bit here. Get my topological masking brushes on. Just want to kind of create some of this silhouette down here. Looking a little bit better, and his eyes are much larger. Also pull these forward by just a little bit. Alt tap on the other geometry. Smooth this out. Control Shift tap on the nose. We're going to hide that. Smooth this out in here. So you see, using these poly groups, I can hide things and have a little more control of what I'm doing. And I could have done this before I merged them, but the advantage of merging them first is now I have the ability to kind of push and pull several pieces together if I choose to. Now I'm going to hide the eyes, so I'm just going to hit this little eyeball up here in my subtool. I'm going to turn off topological masking, and I'm going to push the sockets back in just a bit more. And this thing's looking more and more creepy by the moment. It's going to look weird before it looks good, I promise. Okay, show the eyes again. Kind of pull this back up. Smooth this out. Control Shift tap to bring the nose back. That modified the face a little bit. Let's turn topological back on and push the nose itself in a bit more. He has some giant nostrils, but I don't think they're quite this large. And see, it's a little bit hard to get into that spot, so I'm going to Control Shift tap to just grab the nose itself. And there we go. Let's push the nose in quite a bit further back in here. Smooth this out a little bit. Pull this back out just a little bit. Bring the nostrils in a little. Control Shift tap to pull it all back. Control Shift tap. We're just going to pull this back down a little more. Control Shift tap. We'll bring it back. All right. Topological masking on. I'm going to push the cheeks back in just a little bit. There's kind of an S curve that goes kind of a zigzag from the eyes in to the cheeks out and then back down to the mouth. I think we've got this a little further out than we need. The muzzle does come off the head, but I think we've got it a bit much. So those sharp little cheekbones here. Right now the head typically also pushes in a little bit, right here where the temples are at. Let's mirror this ear over. So in case you merge something before you mirror something else over, and if you ever find that your model gets off symmetry, right? Say for some reason you forget to do X, your model comes out and you do something crazy, or forget an ear, whatever it might be. This is why I like to build the left side first. Go to the Geometry tab, Modify Topology, and I'm going to hit Mirror and Weld. With the X selected, it will mirror over anything that is on the left to the right side. So now my model is symmetrical. You notice this little goof up here is gone and the ear appeared, right? So if your model ever gets off center, you can always do that to bring that back in. And now let's make some eyelids. So remember how we kept the eyes separate? Part of that reason is we can make some eyelids pretty easily. Now I can just go and duplicate them, but I'm going to move them down below the model to make sure I keep them separate from the other eyes. And I'm going to isolate them by hitting solo. And let's go and grab this knife curve. Again, I need to hit Control Shift to use it. Hit OK. Hold Control and Shift. And if I go from the left side, the gradient's on the bottom, which is great. If for some reason I haven't quite put it where I need it, I can hold down spacebar in addition, and I can move this around, try to put this right in the middle, and it will clip and cut those. Now, do you see how create a little funky geometry here? Let's undo that, and let's actually grab the clip curve instead. Now, clip curve is very similar. So hold Control and Shift and spacebar to adjust this. Now, when it clips it, notice how it did something different to geometry here. It kept that in the middle. All right, let's unhide everything here, hit W. But when I scale these up, I need to have my symmetry on. So make sure X has been hit. I need my local symmetry on over here as well. But the dynamic, the words up here need to be turned off. You can see a little white, it says dynamic in white right up there. And I'm going to scale this up and see that scales correctly. It's consistent. If this local symmetry is off, see how it scales out further to the side versus in the middle. We don't want that. If dynamic is turned on, see how it's scaling more to this side than this side. We don't want that either. And this needs to be symmetrical. So turn off dynamic. Recap. 3 things need to happen to scale something symmetrically. 1, make sure you hit X. So you have actual, just your symmetry on. Turn on local symmetry. Make sure dynamic, this word is off. All right, scale that up a little bit. And we have some nice consistent eyelids in here. Now from the side view, rotate these. Now his eyelids are hidden, but I'm going to build them in anyway. Actually, I'm going to bring them down a little bit further. I'm not pushing it down because I want the rotation to stay in the center. Now we will, well, let's do this. It's larger. Pull these down. I'm just kind of nudging these down a little bit, nudge it back up a little bit. And I'm doing this from the front view. I'm trying not to change the thickness of the eyelids too much here. And if you do, just kind of tap it back out, right? Push this in a little bit. I want to keep this consistent. Turn the brush size down to only affect a smaller area. But I do want to make sure that the inner side comes down further than the outer side. This is a bit much out here. Typically about 2/3 in on the eye is the highest point of the eyelid. Again, check your concept. That's not always the case, but typically where I cannot see his eyelids very much, I'm going to go with typical and then put those eyebrows on top. All right. A little bit thick in here. Push this back in. Alrighty. Alt tap on the rest of my model here. Let's turn this off. Pull this out. I'm going to use the pinch brush. So select my brush up here. Hit P to narrow this down. I'm going to run the pinch brush across the nose, up across the forehead. I was a little strong. Let's turn this intensity down a little bit. And I'll do this again after I merge, but just to get this started in here, I want to get a little bit more square on the nose and a little bit more of a brow line started. I'll pull out a cavity in here with the eyes. Right, there we go. Go over this a few times to get an edge there. I'm going to come down across the face as well. Let's turn this back up a little bit. There we go. Down across the chin. You can't see it too on the concept. There's actually a little bit of almost where his like a 5 o'clock shadow, I guess, is coming in. There's a little bit of shadow change in there. And this line here indicates these lines do exist, right? So we want to do a little bit of an S curve here. Back up here. There we go. There's also a ridge that comes up and over. It's a bit pronounced, so we'll smooth it out. And even if I create these lines and then smooth them back down, it starts to carve in these plane changes, which we need. This helps define these plane changes in the face. I also need to create one across under the eyes. And that's pulling the nose a bit much, so let's Control tap, cover that up. Smooth this out in here. Control tap outside the model, bring that back. All right, to work on the mouth any further, we need to merge everything into one mesh. Otherwise, we're going to lose detail in the process. Then we'll continue to refine the face shape since we're still in that awkward blockout phase, which we'll look at in the next video. Well, that's about the bare bones of the blockout. We'll see you in part 2. Thanks for watching.